Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to crack open the entrepreneur's playbook. And forget that old myth, right? The one about the lone genius with a sudden light bulb moment. No, we're going to break down the actual DNA of entrepreneurship, turn it into a real, practical guide. We'll be using proven principles, real strategies, so let's just dive right in.
So why does all this matter so much? Okay, look at this number, 61.8%. What is that? Well, that is the absolutely staggering percentage of all net new jobs in the U.S. created by small businesses. Think about that for a second. It means entrepreneurs aren't just, building companies. They are literally the engine of our economy. They're building the future, one job at a time. It's huge.
All right, so to get a handle on all this, we're going to follow a 5-stage journey. First up, the entrepreneur's mindset. Then we'll go hunting for where ideas are hiding. After that, it's all about turning an idea into a concept, picking your game plan, and finally, checking out the new frontier of what's happening right now.
Okay, let's dive into our first section, the mindset. There's this really common idea out there that entrepreneurs are just different. Like a special breed you're either born into or you're not. But you know what the research actually shows? It's not really about some fixed personality. It's way more about a way of thinking that really anyone can learn and cultivate.
But that said, it turns out there is a measurable difference. If you compare entrepreneurs to, say, corporate managers, they tend to score way higher on two really key traits. The first one is openness to experience. That's just that curiosity, right? The drive to seek out new things, to embrace a little risk. And the second one is conscientiousness, which is the discipline to actually see things through. And here's the kicker. It's not just one or the other. It's the combination, that 1-2 punch of a big imagination and the relentless drive to make it happen.
And that drive, well, it's fueled by some pretty specific characteristics. It all starts with that internal fire, doesn't it? You've got deep passion, a competitive streak, and you have to be a self-starter. But that fire needs to be pointed somewhere. And that's where thinking outside the box comes in, and having the people skills to get everyone else on board with your crazy idea. And then, finally, there's just grit. That stubbornness, that refusal to take no for an answer.
All right, section 2. So you've got the mindset down. Now, where do you point all that energy? Well, this is where the legendary management guru Peter Drucker basically gives us a treasure map. He argued that innovation isn't some random lightning strike. Nope. It's a systematic process. It's about searching for opportunities in a really deliberate way.
So Drucker actually came up with 8 sources of innovation. But these 4 right here, they're the most reliable, the most predictable. So think of them as the biggest, boldest clues on that treasure map we just mentioned. The unexpected, incongruities, a process need, and even flaws in how an industry is structured. For now, let's just zoom in on the first 2, because honestly, they are hiding in plain sight all around us.
Okay, here's a fun one. What do Teflon, Post-it notes, and the Slinky all have in common? Any guesses? The answer is they were all total accidents. Every single one started as a complete failure in a lab somewhere. But someone was paying just enough attention to see what it really was, an unexpected success. See, the key thing here isn't the accident itself. It's the awareness. It's having the presence of mind to stop and ask, wait a minute. What else can I do with this? A glue that didn't stick right becomes the perfect adhesive for a Post-it. A spring that falls off a table becomes a Slinky. That is Drucker's first source of innovation, spotting the opportunity in the unexpected. Now, what about spotting opportunity in things that are just frustrating? Well, that brings us to incongruities. This is another massive source for great ideas. All you have to do is look around and ask yourself, what is something in my day-to-day life that just makes me go, why is this still so hard? There has to be a better way, right? That gap, that space between the frustrating reality and what you feel ought to be possible, that is a giant, flashing neon sign pointing directly at an opportunity.
Okay, section 3. You've spotted an opportunity. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it was an incongruity. So now what? How do you take that raw idea and shape it into an actual workable concept? Well, the best entrepreneurs do this by kind of building an internal creative team. Yeah, think of it like having 4 different experts living right inside your head. And these are the 4 hats you have to wear.
First, you got to be the explorer, always on the hunt for new information, new material. Then you switch hats and become the artist, the one who transforms all that raw stuff into a new concept. But, and this is crucial, before you get too attached, the judge has to step in. That's your inner critic, the skeptical voice that pokes holes in the idea and tests it for every weakness. And only if it survives that, does the warrior take over, the one who fights to bring that now battle-tested idea into the real world.
All right, Section 4. Your internal board of directors is given the green light. The concept is solid. Now it is go time. But how do you actually get it out there? How do you enter the market? Turns out there isn't just one path. You need a strategy, a game plan.
And Drucker, he laid out 4 really distinct game plans. First, there's the fastest with the mostest, which is a funny way of saying be first and be biggest. Think about the Ford Model T, which just came in and owned the whole market. Or you can hit them where they ain't. That's what Google did, right? They built a way better search engine when there are already a bunch of them. Third, you can find an ecological niche, a tiny, super specialized market that nobody else is bothering with, and just dominate it. And finally, you can just change the value of something that already exists, kind of like how Apple turned a phone into a full-blown pocket computer.
Okay, last section. So all these ideas from Drucker, they might sound a little old school, a little timeless, but how do they actually apply to the world right now? Well, you could argue they're more relevant today than they've ever been. Let's look at a huge, modern example that proves it.
I'm talking about the sharing economy. Just think about it. Companies like Uber and Airbnb didn't invent cars or apartments, obviously. What they did was they spotted a massive incongruity, remember that word? Millions of assets like cars and spare rooms were just sitting there completely unused. So they applied new tech to solve a process need and boom, created entirely new markets just by changing what it means to own something.
And what's so incredibly powerful about this model is how it just demolishes the barrier to entry. You've got minimal startup costs. You're building on things that already exist. It basically democratizes entrepreneurship. Suddenly, anyone can tap into a system that millions of people already use and trust. It's created this massive new frontier of opportunity.
But listen, this isn't just for people starting a company from scratch. Remember that mindset we talked about at the very beginning? There's a name for that when you're inside a company, intra-entrepreneurship, and it is incredibly valuable. In fact, get this, 75% of small businesses are actively directly encouraging their own employees to think like entrepreneurs, to be the ones spotting opportunities and suggesting new ideas from the inside.
So there you have it. We've traced the entire journey from mindset all the way to the market. And what have we learned? That entrepreneurship isn't some kind of magic. It's a skill. Innovation isn't just about luck. It's a systematic search. Opportunity is literally hiding everywhere, in the happy accidents, in our daily frustrations. This whole playbook, it's right there, accessible to anyone who's willing to pick it up and use it. So I guess the only question left to ask is, where are you going to look first?